The story begins in this place where there was so many people watching the game. It was the third set of the play, and the MC said that having one last arrow inbound, and there they had the youngest participant of the championship. And he was player Yoo Sanghyun, and he was main character of our story for today. And the MC said again that he got a full 10-pointer on all his hits by far, and the man beside him said that sure he did. And they will see if his last arrow will be the cherry on top of it all. Yoo Sanghyun was preparing to shoot the archer's board, and when he released the archer, it was perfectly another bullseye. Everybody was cheering at him, his shot beautifully pierced the center of the lens, and his friends were so happy with him and hugging him. They were calling him a literal God-sent genius. And on that day, they got themselves the youngest winner of the national championship. But that was all in the past. At the office he was working for, he was being offended by his boss, and he was being asked what the hell he was distracted with. And he said sorry to his boss, and his boss told him to prepare it again, and he answered that he will. And when he got out to the office he said to himself a good job for holding out. He was at home, watching the videos of the time when he was an archery player. And he said that it's already been 10 years since then. 10 years ago, archery was all he had. But pursuing archery required a lot of money. He lived alone with his grandmother, so he had no choice but to go for the scholarship. And for that, he put his all into practice. One day after the other, he kept shooting arrows again and again. And how awesome was it to be someone with a promising future in any domain? Shooting arrows was his only reward, and he had the utmost trust in his destiny that he would have a bright future. His hand was shaking, and he was saying in his mind that if his coach did not introduce him in the company, he would have been unemployed all his life. He was done watching his videos, and then he went to the other website to watch a game stream. And he saw almost all of them were full dive game streamers. A full dive, a game that makes you feel like you have stepped into its world. The best existing medium for vicarious experience. And you can play it with a device capsule. The game is often called a capsule game. And the bad side was the capsule cost you an arm and leg. A 9-to-5er like him could never dream of it. And he should consider himself lucky and blessed that he gets to watch it online like that. The machine's just old, so it lagged. Everything works in the game, he says. And it would be a lie to say that he doesn't envy them. No matter how lacking the streamer was, so many people, including him. Back then, he could sacrifice everything to do his best, and be acknowledged by everyone too. And so he closed the computer and went to sleep, and the next day, they were restructuring and decided to resign in his work. His boss told him that they said if he leaves without a fuss, they will take good care of him. But if they oust him during the restructuring, there was a high chance he won't get that either. And he answered to his boss that he will resign, and his boss asked him if he really would, and he answered that he was, and told his boss that it said that if he leaves now, he will get good severance pay too. The boss said that he was quick, and if he made up his mind, he will get it done for today, and signed the resignation letter. The boss was saying in his mind that Yoo Sanghyun shouldn't be down over this and got in through connections anyway. Yoo Sanghyun was looking at all of the employees there who went through so much trouble, from graduate university to working on their resumes. And they even studied abroad because studying English wasn't enough. And they didn't have much choice either. And so he went home lying in his bed. He looked at the ceiling and he remembers again that 10 years ago, he was the youngest winning athlete at a national championship. However, just a high school graduate, with nothing to show for in his resume, and he can't go back to his past. And he was asking himself what he should do now, and suddenly his phone popped up. And it was a bubblegum live stream, and the thing gets into his mind that everything was possible in the game, and thinking that if anything was possible inside the game, then shooting arrows like in the past must be possible too. And if he showed himself doing that on a stream, and suddenly asked if it would make him popular. And Bubblegum, whose stream he often watches, isn't good at the game, and it felt like most people enjoy that more. Compared to a stream like that, he wonders how many skilled streamers there were. And then he saw that there were a lot more than he thought. In fact, there were skilled streamers, and it seems other than people proving their skills through the streaming, there were a lot who were trying to improve their skills by watching the stream. It is just like the world of sports. In reality there were too many variables. A series of variables he simply cannot predict. But that world was similar to the life he liked and lived when he was young. A life dedicated to competing with his skill, progressing, and leveling up one stage at a time. A simple, but fair world, or maybe even he could. In this coffee shop, he was talking with someone and the guy asked him if he was really going to buy the capsule. And he answered that he would, and the guy said to him again if he was gonna use all his money to just play games, and asked if he was crazy. And told him that he said that he had never played a game, and asked if doesn't he remembered when he let go of his bow. And he answered that he remembered it and told the guy not to worry about it because he will do well seriously. And the guy asked him how he could know if he had never tried, and he was being offended by the guy and told him to stop talking nonsense and be realistic. He was staring at the guy and said in his mind that seeing how worried Juyuk was and asked if there was really a problem. In his previous company, Juyuk was the only colleague he could confine in, where not a single trustworthy person existed, and living a life completely opposite to him. Juyuk was the epitome of an elite among elites, raised in a wealthy family and following a solid path to success. So whenever he talked to Juyuk, it felt like something was getting resolved. Juyuk was asking if he was listening to him, and told him that it would be better for him to go to Kangwon Land instead. And he answered that he was not good at playing card games, because it was just a metaphor. And the guy asked him how much the capsule cost and he answered 4,000 won. Juyuk was thinking that the device alone costs 4,000 won, then there was also additional equipment and his electricity bill will go up too. Yoo Sanghyun was asking himself if he really needed something besides the 4,001 device and his friend answered that he needed it and asked him if he thought all he needed was just the 4,001 device. And he was asking that it can be up to 40 million won. And the guy said that even if he had a car worth 100 million, what he required was money and Juyuk left him and said to wait right there until he got off work. After it, they were staring at that big building and he was asking if it was a capsule room rental. And isn't the place where capsules were used, not sold? Juyuk called the man that was passed by and the guy introduced himself and said that he was Kang Suk and he heard they were looking to buy a capsule, and thought they could give him left ones at a cheaper price and pleaded to come inside. And Yoo Sanghyun was thinking that the guy was the boss of the capsule rental room. And the two of them approve of each other. And when they were inside, there were capsules all over, and the guy said that before purchasing, they should try it first. Then he grabbed Yoo Sanghyun to gather some physical information first. And told him that for capsule usage, biometric information was required. After gathering some information, the man and Juyuk were talking and he said thank you to the guy for doing it for him. And the guy said that it was nothing and said honestly that regarding his friend, if he can it would be better to stop him from doing it. Because there were many people like him already. They get carried away after watching game ranks of streamers. And games are a bit expensive these days, and many people mistakenly believe that they can show their talents in games. But in reality, it doesn't always turn out that way. Juyuk was saying that even with a full dive, games and reality were quite different, and asked if it differed that much. And the guy answered that it was and he can utilize his physical abilities. And since there were no physical limitations, the discernment became lacking, and in the end it was also about mental strength. And the guy told him that about Yoo Sanghyun, and said that their company isn't doing well so they fired him, thinking that maybe he will give up after playing the test game once. Juyuk was guessing that it was for the best, and it was better than putting his entire fortune in a capsule. The guy told Yoo Sanghyun that the game he was going to access was called Real Olympics. And because he did archery, he will set it up with that. And pleaded to tell him the score and decide after that, and closed the capsule. While he was entering he was asking what an interesting sensation it was, his body was there, but his mind felt like it was going somewhere else. And he suddenly appeared in an archery game, and someone was saying that player Yoo Sanghyun arrived at the stage with his bow. And said also that he had been gifted since childhood. And Yoo Sanghyun couldn't believe it, it was similar to reality, and it really looks like an Olympic. He gets his first arrow to shoot and he was asking himself if he can do it, because his hands were shaking. Suyuk and the guy were watching him and they were asking why he was not shooting. And the guy said maybe Sanghyun was nervous because players were often like that. Suyuk said that Sanghyun was so calm in everything, and asked why he was nervous. Sanghyun was saying in his mind that it was really different. The tension of the string, the feeling of the grip, were definitely not real. And now his hands were no longer shaking, and knowing that it was not real. And when he released the arrow, he scored 10 points. Juyuk and the guy were really amazed, and Sanghyun was knocking fast and getting 10 points. And every release of his bow, gets 10 points. The guy said that Sanghyun was adapting quickly and thought it was not the matter of that, he saw that Sanghyun looks different. And he was asking what was the true identity of Sanghyun. Sanghyun finishes the game and the guy told him that he was amazing, and it might be a waste if he just buys a second-hand item like that and asks what he thinks. Juyuk asked him if he was okay, and if he was getting motion sickness and why he looked exhausted. The guy asked Sanghyun what his true identity was. Juyuk answered it and told the guy that Sanghyun was the youngest gold medalist. Maybe he was the best in the world, until that accident. And he really wanted to help him and said to the guy that Sanghyun really likes archery. Juyuk told him that it has been so long since he last shot an arrow, and he was being asked if he didn't remember it. Sanghyun smiled and answered how he could forget it, he remembered it as if it was yesterday. The sudden accident, the cold indifferent look on the doctor's face, the dream he has to give up on. He was crying and said that it was embarrassing, and so the capsule connection was complete, and the program was installed. And Sanghyun feels great and said that it looks like he can start streaming on that day. And he was deeply grateful that Kang-suk gave him a good deal on it. And he was hoping to himself that it wasn't a loss for Kang-suk, not just a bargain. He was going to start the stream and the capsule was ready to start broadcasting too. And he picked the Kingdom Age in the category settings. It was a game set in medieval times, focusing on the life of a mercenary. It was a game filled with realistic gritty combat. It may not be a massively popular game, but it has its own fan base due to its unique appeal. The popular games tend to have many streamers playing them, so Kingdom Age has moderate recognition, and since there aren't many streamers due to the game's difficulty, it was a good choice for a first-timer. The computer said that character appearance customization is complete, and full dive will begin in 5 seconds. He was now entering the game and a man was awakening him up, and he was asking where he was and why he was in a cart. And he saw those knights were in a fight and he was asking if they were in the middle of the battle. And the mercenary captain was asking if he needed another hit to snap him out of it. And he said sorry to the captain and asked himself if the captain was the one who hit him. The mercenary told him that bandits were attacking and wanted him to grab a weapon. The monitor said to choose his weapon. In the selection menu he was finding a bow, and he only saw a spear and a sword. And he was asking why he didn't see a bow. It was supposed to be listed as an option. And there was someone asking in the computer if it was a bow challenge, and Sanghyun was asking when did the viewers come in. It's only 5 people and guesses he chose the right game. Sanghyun was asking if it was a bow challenge and bows were not good. And thinking that if it were great, they wouldn't call it a challenge. The guy on the computer was asking if he was new to it, and said that bows can hit allies, bounce off armor, and he had to manage his arrow count, so it might be tough for him. And now he knows that's how it works and said thank you for letting him know. And so he selected the bow, and it seemed like the live stream was welcoming newbies. However, he chose the bow and he was asking where it was. And suddenly the bow fell into his hands, and he had obtained a bow and 20 arrows. The people on the live stream were laughing at him because he chose the bow. The mercenary captain was asking can't he get a rip and told him to pick it up and attack. And there was someone on the computer telling not to mess with the newbie and telling him not to listen because Roman's words were spicy even after a long time. Sanghyun shot and it was headshot, and he was thinking now that the game feels similar to real Olympics. And quite different from traditional archery, and he feels like it was somewhere between traditional and modern archery and he was starting to get the hang of it. And he was asking if an arrow was always a one-hit and there was someone in the computer who answered that only if it hits a vital point and the game was quite realistic, so it simulates actual organ locations. And there was a headshot mechanic, so if he hit the head, it was usually a one-shot. And he said thank you to Ruby Sword and he will take one shot at a time. Some viewers don't believe him and he said in his mind that he will just prove it with the results. So there he goes and it's all about sportsmanship. And now he was analyzing, there were about 20 bandits, and he had 20 arrows. And he had precisely 1 arrow for every target. And it was clearing up quickly and he needed to keep going. He hid in the fence and analyzed that unlike the stationary targets in archery, the enemies were moving, so he was worried he would hit them, but it was easier than he thought. He peeks a little and he saw the bandit that has a shield and shield bearers just could get tricky. And he was asking if he should take a shot, but if he would, he was worried about running out of arrows. And he was analyzing how to hit the bandit and he saw that the side was open, and so he hit the bandit side of the head. And looks like the bandits were gone and he was asking was the shield bearer the last one. And he was asking what was going on and why the chat stopped and guessed that shooting arrows wasn't entertaining enough. And he was shocked when suddenly the chat was in chaos and asking what was happening. And said that he was not normal and asked how he made a new account and what it was. The chat was in chaos because he killed the boss and he was asking if it is not okay to kill the boss and someone answered that it was not that not allowed, it was just that he didn't die. And Sanghyun answered that he said everything dies with a headshot. And the guy said that bosses usually don't get hit in the head and he asked if he did hit him in the head. And the guy answered exactly and asked how he did it. Someone said that the boss has a shield and moves faster, so if it is not at maximum power, he dodges everything. And he asked if they meant shooting with the bow pulled all the way back, and said that it was not so hard. And he said that aiming for a full draw was not difficult. And somebody asked what he said and did he really shoot at full draw every time. And suddenly someone was calling him a newbie and asked if that last arrow was really him. The streaming spread on the internet and there was a lot of comment for him in the game. And back to the stream, the guy asked what his name was cause he really wanted to know. And he will report it to the mercenary captain. And he answered that his name was Almond, and the guy said that he would remember it. The Kingdom Age community, known as Kingdom Age but, had stagnated like the game itself. Although most of the users were passionate enthusiasts, the lack of interesting moments and interaction was turning the community into an echo chamber, where the conversation on the same topic were being repeated by the regulars. Until one post changed everything. A total newbie getting praised by Romaine. The stream was in chaos again because Sanghyun was being praised with a Romaine. He was so happy scrolling the internet because he became a popular newbie who was pro doing a bow and also of his auto-generated streams named. And then suddenly he saw a comment that he was like the veteran Electron. It was the name he remembered from the top ranking when he was looking for skilled streams, and he heard that Electron was a former pro gamer. A legendary pro gamer and top-tier skill streamer electromagnetic. And now he was being compared to Electron. He was so annoyed and said that he only broadcast for one day, and he was already compared to the top tier in the industry. And then someone popped up and told everyone to stop because if they keep comparing him to Electron, asking what if he quits the stream from the pressure, and then another one said that comparing a newbie to a world-class player seems a bit cruel. And Sanghyun feels great about it and asks if it was real, then laughs. And suddenly someone was calling and it was Juyuk and he was asking what was going on at that hour. And so he answered the call, and Juyuk asked if his stream last night went well. Sanghyun said some thank you and Juyuk was glad to hear it and asked if the capsule was working okay because the boss was a bit worried. Sanghyun answered that it was fine and seemed to be working well, and Juyuk asked him if he had any viewers. And he answered kind of, but by the end he had about 20 viewers. Juyuk was shocked and asked what he did on his first day to get that many, and he answered that he just picked a good game. Juyuk asked why he was even there with a talent like that, and Sanghyun told him that if someone offered him a parachute into a big company and asked Juyuk if he was not going to take it, Juyuk laughed and answered that it was fair enough. They chat a lot and Sanghyun told Juyuk that he was going to hang up because he had to get ready for his stream. Juyuk asked don't he stream after dinner, and he answered that there was no lunch or dinner for him and it was his job now. Juyuk smiled and told Sanghyun that it was a good grief, and he never worked during lunch or dinner at the office. And suddenly the boss was calling him and asked how he can eat at a time. And so Juyuk hung up the call and Sanghyun was laughing and said that Manager Park was still the same. He was going to do a live stream and saying in his mind that he should have a more fulfilling meal. But even meal times feel like a waste, he just wants to start as soon as possible. Ever since he checked out that community earlier, his heart hasn't stopped racing. The pressure that comes with comparison, the tension he felt when he was being judged and asking himself how long has it been he felt that way. And said in his mind that it was amazing how much energy he got from people's attention and feedback. And it seems that he was a true sportsman at heart. The stream started and someone said that Almond was there too, and he was asking if it was just him or the chat moving much faster than yesterday and how many people were watching right now. Then he saw that there were 189 people watching and he was really shocked and amazed that the number of viewers jumped ninefold in one day, and he didn't expect that much buzz from that small community. He had never been in a situation like that, so he was a bit nervous. Then he took a deep breath to relax, and when he felt like that he just imagined that it isn't the real world, and it was just a game he was playing in third person. He closed his eyes and said that when he distances himself from reality like that, the nervousness just disappears like magic. And so he just smiled and said that he will pick up from where they left off yesterday. At the office Juyuk was so annoyed with his manager and said that they say even a dog shouldn't be disturbed while eating and Manager Park was just annoying him. And so he told himself to relax and read the message of Sanghyun saying thank you for helping him and he will buy him a drink next time, and Juyuk got it noted. Juyuk was so happy to see Sanghyun working hard and said that he was always a diligent guy. Then he suddenly remembers that he called Sanghyun because he had something to tell him, but he completely forgot and it was all about the capsule. The guy called him and said that there was a meeting in seminar room 3 and he answered that he will head straight in. He was so worried and asked himself what he was supposed to say. Before Sanghyun went to sleep last night, he did some research by going through a few websites. And it was mainly about how popular streamers manage their audiences, controversial cases, then some common taboos, and much more. And analyzing that mentioning his viewer account may disrupt your audience engagement and establish some rivalry with other streamers, that's what they wrote. And not to let your audiences think of you as just a streamer. And wanting to make your streams feel intimate like someone's watching their friend playing a game. Then he mentioned those viewers who watched him yesterday, and said thank you to them for coming back to watch him again. Sanghyun already had fans in his second day of streaming and they were calling him a streaming genius. Sanghyun was a little bit shy about calling him a genius and he feels great hearing it. And so he hopped right into the game and initiated a full dive, and the game starting right off the horse. And he was already doing something that was his expertise. And he was asking if it was because he stopped streaming yesterday and played a little more. He had Roman introduce him to the mercenary leader, and now he had a new mission. But first he had to start with some uninteresting stuff, and he needed to explain stuff to his audience briefly. He said that there was nothing special about the mission, and he thought mercenaries were supposed to fight in wars, but it feels like he's a bodyguard. A viewer said that the game was realistic then, and Sanghyun said that the game was insanely realistic. He felt like he was actually riding a horse. Then suddenly the captain asked him if it was his first time riding a horse, and he answered that it was not true, but he had only a handful of opportunities to ride it. And he was asking himself if it was a fixed dialogue, because he blurted the words out naturally. The captain told him that in this case he needed to get familiar quickly, and he was going to do a lot of riding ahead. The Roman was laughing, and it was their first time seeing a Roman being that kind, and someone said that it can't be a Roman, and then suddenly someone popped up and asked what he did to his Roman. Someone asked what kind of mission he was doing right now, and was there something like that in the beginning? And isn't it the one where a group of bandits on horseback appear? And then suddenly the monitor said that they were going to appear already, and suddenly a horseback bandits appeared, and the captain told his mercenaries to strike. The horseback bandits were attacking them and their front line was breached. Sanghyun was just looking at them and thinking that the horseback bandits really came, and he thought they were in the hot waters. Someone was excited about his attack, but there were people who doubted him or wished for his failure. And he just said that it was a common reaction in the sports world and he was familiar with it. He said that it's quite easy to silence them though, just let the outcome silence the reactors. He was preparing to release his arrow and said that this time it wasn't even an ambush, and asked why mercenaries always lose. He handles those at the front first, and he releases his arrow, and the bandit in front was headshot. And all of them were really shocked, because the one he hit again was the boss. Everybody was asking what happened, and Sanghyun was asking what happened to their mood. And someone said that he just shot the captain dead, and he asked what was wrong. And he answered that he shot him first because he was at the front, but he turned out to be their captain. His chat section was huge compared to his viewer count, and said that they were really excited. And now he was moving to the next one because the battle was not over yet. It was enough for him to be happy after leaving the battles as the victor. He hit all the bandits and horses with his arrows, and there was someone who said that it was so cool and thought that it was fake footage, but it was a live show. The bandits said that they were going to retreat. And Almond said that he can't let them escape, and said sorry to them, and gave the bandit a headshot. The captain said that the enemies were running away and ordered the mercenaries catch and kill them all. And the mission had been updated, chase and eliminate the horseback bandits. And he said that since the mission had been updated, they will chase them and he will end the mission. This guy just stopped to see if there was any news about him, and he suddenly asked who Almond was. And since it was holding a bow, and guessed that there was a bow challenge. And he was wondering who the streamer was, who wanted to play that unpopular game. And asking if it was none other than that pervert. The guy was a streamer also, and he was Acorn Jelly. And he was thinking that Almond may be just like him, and when he played the video, he was really shocked, asking what it was. He saw that all those bandits got killed by one arrow to their heads. And said that a simple headshot isn't enough to kill someone instantly, but contrary to that, they died right away without even a moment to react, and he was asking if it was perhaps a perfect shot. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Until next time.